Welcome to another spooky episode of the Dumb Slate podcast. Now time for some interactive fun. Hey, it's still Kirk. This is still Dumb Slate, and I am very sorry for my spooky voice impersonation of Vincent Price in the beginning. I had to try it at least once. You know how it goes. Like I said earlier, it's spooky season. We're still trending on spooky season. I think on the last episode I made a mistake and said that was the fourth spooky story I've done this year, which technically this is the fourth. Sorry, that last episode was a struggle to get through. I had audio issues. I had to start and restart. It was a mess. Sorry for it. This is the fourth spooky episode. I need to hurry up because it's Halloween is this week. Where has the time gone? Am I right? But yeah, I'm back with another spooky episode. And in this story, I won't have like a scene like last time or the last couple episodes. I really can't think of a specific scene. My mind was mostly like occupied with coming up with the story because initially this is a piggyback off of the last spooky season episode I did was called Invisible Birds, where you find out there's these invisible birds that feed off of humans. And of course, one of the biggest, spooky season story tropes are vampires. I always want to do a vampire story. And this one, there's vampires has been done, redone, overdone, done over, rewritten, unwritten, rewritten many, many times. So it's hard to come up with something original. But I wanted to do something different because I absolutely love the show What We Do in the Shadows and the character Colin Robinson, who's an unconventional vampire. He's an energy vampire. He doesn't suck blood. He doesn't kill people. He feeds off of people's energy, and he's like the comic relief. Well, the show's a comedy show, but he's like this weird alternative vampire who has this weird, boring energy, and that's how he feeds off people. He like bores them to death. I guess you can say, or into a coma, and he feeds off of that. And I wanted to create like my own kind of, for lack of a better term, trope or mythology, I'll say, of vampires, where it's not they sleep in a coffin, they live forever, they suck blood, they do this, garlic and crosses and all that stuff, all the usual stuff that's already written. I like to look for different mythologies and lore of vampires, not sparkly ones that live in Washington. Nothing like that. There's a book series that's really good. I think the writer's name is David Wellington, if I remember. It was like a 5-book. I think it's technically called the Laura Claxton series. She's like the main character, but she's a human, and like it's set in current times, and there's, vampires from the past. It starts off, I think, with 13 Bullets. That's the first book in the series. It's really good, where like vampires are these monsters that can't control themselves. I really like that lore in that story. But for mine, like I said, I'm piggybacking off of the cryptid I created for Invisible Birds, where it feeds off of their life energy. And this one is going to be a vampire tale. As you see for the title, I did the different spelling of vampire because I've been reading kind of this old book on vampires, and they've been referencing older vampire tales, and I kept saying that over and over. So that's what I wanted to name it. I don't know if it's pronounced different. If you say Vampyr, which I like when people say Vampyr, that's pretty cool. But yeah, so in my tale, I'm calling it Vampyr Echoes. I'm sticking with a vampire. I'm going to use that from now on. Sorry if that comes off pretentious, but vampire. Like it or love it. Okay. So this is going to be kind of a singular tale, kind of based off of one person, because to jump to the chase, you find out or at least this vampire in the story is it lives within a person. Like vampire, like the folklore is real, but not the tales you've been told. They do feed off of blood and energy and all that stuff from humans, but they're not people that live in coffins. They're not, undead that live in coffins and come back to life and all that stuff. It is something that's inside of a person, and it's being told from the tale of this person. This person doesn't know it, that there's a vampire within them that basically feeds off of them during the day in small chunks and can kind of be reborn in their own. They can come back up in their own body at night, and that's why the character really doesn't realize it. So I'll stop there. When I was doing research and I was kind of working out this story in my head, I was coming up with this, like, vampires inside this person. The person, like, they always have these random pains, and they're always sore and tired throughout the day. They don't know if they're being fed upon. And I was going through all this. I was like, oh, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. And then it finally clicked in my head. I was like, oh yeah, the idea of parasites. I was like, yeah, I'm writing a parasite movie. And then I went down the rabbit hole in the middle of the night. I think it was Thursday night or something last week, of parasite horror movies. And I was like, oh, there's so many of these. There's so many of these, like parasite horror movies, and also possession movies. So it's not going to be a possession movie. I went down the rabbit hole, The Grudge, The Host, all these parasite gore fest movies. I was like, this is not what I'm writing. It's not going to be like a vampire in the kind of the standard sense of this is a alien. It's not Venom. It's not a parasite movie. It's not a mind control movie. All these things. And I kind of got down. I was like, every idea I have about this is kind of already done. That's we're talking about spooky season and fears. That's my biggest fear, of spending all this time on thinking I'm creating something unique and different. And it's like, oh yeah, it's been done up and down. But I'm trying to, like, narrow my focus into this one story so I don't get distracted of all the other things that's already been done. It's not a parasite movie. I'm saying it again. It's not a parasite movie. This is a vampire that lives within a person, and they don't know. The vampire does not communicate with the person because that shock of it would basically make the person comatose or kill the person, which will in turn kill the vampire. The vampire can... This is going to come out later, another spoiler, that a vampire can hop between hosts, but it's really difficult and it's really dangerous. The vampire may not last, or the vampire, if the person that they're feeding off of, their host body goes comatose, then the vampire is kind of stuck. They can only feed a little at a time when the person is kind of awake, but like the mythology of this, and I'm going to break every rule of reality in writing this, and I don't care if reality, you're writing a fictional story, that in my mythology of this story, if a host goes comatose, they're basically awake all the time. As far as this goes, some part of their brain is awake, but they can't do anything. So the vampire can never fully gain its full strength. They're only feeding a little bit, which, basically turns them into a weak version of themselves. The vampires don't want that. So the vampire within has to keep this person alive, safe, and healthy in a weird way. So you have this weird, like, who's feeding off of who, and the host body doesn't know this is going on. They just think it feels like I get sleep at night, but then I wake up for work and I go throughout my day and I'm tired, I'm sore all the time. They just think they're getting old. They're not exercising enough. They don't realize this feeding is going on. And at night, when this character that is going to be the host body, they don't realize at night, kind of like, and another movie that came to mind when I was creating this story is Moon Knight, or the show Moon Knight, and the character from Marvel Comics. It's so another thing. This isn't a parasite movie. This is also not a split personality movie. Another character doesn't come. It's not a split personality where there's a hero or a demon or a villain that comes out when this character goes to sleep. There's a vampire within. Okay, it's not a split personality movie. It's not Moon Knight. This is something different. Yeah, it's hard trying to navigate that of everything that's already been out when you try to create something unique in your own. It's tough, but I'm trying to navigate it. I'm trying to narrate. So back to my story. My character doesn't realize what's actually going on. And so like it like I said, it's going to be built off like the mythology of calling vampires demons. So it's It's not a possession story. My character can live like their normal life without even knowing it's going on. They just think they're weak and tired and all that stuff. But there's these small things that start to happen. For some reason, the wall between the vampire within or the vampire within starts to break the wall between my character and my character feels like they're going crazy. Not like they're possessed, but they can hear these weird echoes. And they think they're sick or they're having a mental breakdown or something, but something is weird is happening. So like that wall is being broken down. The vampire within is starting to lose control too. And you see this conflict arise where my character, he's like, this is a scene I was thinking of. Like my character's, it's one of those creepy scenes, you know, creepy scenes in horror movies when they're in the bathroom, the light is really weird. Like it's really washed out white and it just looks, you know, something's creepy about to happen. Like, especially when there's a mirror, your character's looking in the mirror or it's like, and there's another person in the mirror. It's not like that. Something happens when my character scratches their forehead. We had that weird horror lighting in the bathroom. Remember that? And they're like, they don't realize it, but they look in the mirror and there's like a trickle of blood coming out of their forehead. Sorry if you have an issue with blood. Sorry. Just a trickle of blood. And then go to like, they tap it, you know, with their finger. They're looking at it. It's like, how did this happen? How did I get cut on my forehead? But then all of a sudden, without them realizing it, without them knowing what they're doing, they're moving like this droplet of blood that's on their finger towards their mouth. And they're seeing themselves doing it, but it's not like they're controlling themselves. They can see what they're physically doing, but it's like they're not doing it. Like they're not in control. And then we start to see these glimpses of the vampire in control. And then without realizing, my character has the finger with the droplet of blood right by their mouth. And as they look in the mirror, they have a glimpse of another tongue coming out their mouth to lick the blood, and it freaks them out. They're like, that wasn't real. I'm going crazy. That wasn't real. So we have these small scenes of characters starting to realize it. My character struggles with random pains. Yeah. Like there's this scene I was thinking of because this randomly happened to me. I literally don't get old, kids, but I was literally standing in the kitchen after I finished washing dishes, and I was just literally standing there looking at the sink. I just had a sharp pain in my back. Like literally the lower part of my back or the lower part of my spine. Just a sharp pain out of nowhere. Just a random pain. So I was like, what if that happened in this story? My character would feel random pains, and that would be, from his perspective, he just has these random pains. He doesn't know what happened, where it's coming from, but within, something is breaking within the vampire. The vampire is starting to lose control, and if they move or if they're breaking out of the host body at the wrong time, they're losing some form of their control. And you see that happening from within. But another thing with these random pains, I randomly said like, oh, it's a poppet or a voodoo doll. You know, those dolls where they say like, if you get a poppet, which is, you know, a representation of someone else, and you stab it with a pinprick or a needle, the actual person will feel that. So I want this like conflict aspect of the story where there's these vampire hunters. Also, back up before I get to that. The thing about about the vampire coming alive at night. Like I said, the vampire within feeds from the host body little bit, you know, during the day. Because the whole thing with, you know, vampires at night, I'll keep that mythology of vampires. Vampires only can rise at night when the sun is down and the moon is up. But they don't like control the body like a puppet within. There's going to be this weird gore fest thing. Sorry if that's your issue, but I won't talk more about it. But it's going to be a weird gore fest where the vampire will arise through the host body and kind of take form of their vampire self, while using the muscles and the organs and whatever skeleton of the human body. And they can go around at night, kind of inside out reverse. Sorry if that's gross. I won't go too much into any more of that, but that's why my character will feel the host character will feel so weak, because they don't know that part of their body is being used for the vampire to go out and hunt fully at night. And something happens where they're hunting at night using my host character's body, and maybe they're seen or they're suspected by these vampire hunters. And something happens where the vampire hunters see this vampire, but there's a trick that the vampire can do. You know how vampires have those visual tricks they have in their mythology with hypnotizing people and all that stuff. So they do a trick to make themselves not look like their vampire self, but their host body. So these vampires hunters see the vampire as the host body rather than how the vampire looks. And so the vampire hunters create a puppet doll, and they do like sorry if this is an offensive term or this is outdated term, but voodoo trick where they create this puppet doll and they pinprick it, but they do it days later as my host character is in their regular human form, and they feel a sharp pain in their back out of nowhere because these vampire hunters are using this puppet doll to think, this is what the vampire looks like. So they created this doll, but they're actually attacking or hurting the human host character. The human host character is like struggling with these pains. But like I said, the wall between the host and the vampire are falling apart. And that's where the suspense and conflict comes in. So at some point, like I said, the vampires never really contact their human host body. They don't talk to them because that shock would just destroy everything. But the walls are starting to close in where the vampire realizes that the hunters are coming in, the Van Helsings or whatever are coming in and they're going to kill. And so they have to break that wall and contact. They have to make it known to the human host what's actually going on. And they have to explain to them this conflicted relationship where they're a vampire, they're a vampire, they're within them, they feed off of them, they break down everything to them. They tell them, like, I need to keep you alive to keep me alive. And my host character is very conflicted because he's realizing his whole life is wrong and he has this demon within him. But the vampire explains to him, these hunters think you're the vampire and they're going to come kill you soon. And so there's a conflict, there's a chase, there's whatever happens in the story. But, sorry if that came through on the mic. I just had an alert on my computer. But what happens is that my character comes up with this plan. He realizes something maybe he gets in contact with the vampire hunters. There's this weird, Romeo and Juliet, different family relationship that happens. But he learns something that if he puts himself in a coma, that the vampire will basically slowly die. But my host character will have to sacrifice himself to basically be a human vegetable. That's like being kept alive by life support. But that way that if he does it, because if he just dies, there's a way the vampire could jump hosts. There's this movie with Denzel Washington, I can't think of the name right now, where there's a demon that could jump hosts. And at the end of the movie, sorry, spoilers, he jumps into a cat. It kind of can be like that. I don't think the vampire would jump into a cat, but it can jump into someone else and they would never know what's going on. The host, my character, I realized that, and he basically, his big ending, his big crescendo of this story is he sacrifices himself and does some way with drugs or whatever. But he puts himself into this coma to keep the vampire within trapped forever. The vampire hunters basically make a way to keep him alive for a long time and keep watch on him as he's in his vegetable state. But then you have your big suspenseful ending where it's just a shot of him laying in the bed in this comatose vegetable state. And then his eyes pop open. You're like, oh, is that really the ending? So yeah, that's my, not a Parasite, not a haunting, not a possession movie. It's a vampire within called Vampyr's Echo. Or did I say, yeah, Vampyr Echoes. Vampyr Echoes or Vampyr's Echo. No, Vampyr Echoes. Because it's the vampire that has the echo. Yeah. That is my fourth spooky season story. I want to apologize again for my Vincent Price impersonation. But like I said, there's only a few days left, so I have to crank out another one. I might group a bunch of like smaller stories that haven't really built out in my head yet together. Yeah, I'll probably do that for the next one because Halloween is going to be here in a couple days because today's the 27th of October. If you're listening to this in the future. But yeah, I for the promise of my AI contribution to the show, I did do that. But that's the thing with this type of story that I run to AI is obviously pulling from movies that are come. Like I said, kept saying this isn't a parasite. This isn't a parasite movie. This isn't a possession movie. This is the log line they came up with. I gave the same kind of synopsis prompt to Gemini. They came up with a title called The Unseen Hunger. Their log line is: a young, ambitious journalist uncovers a sinister truth about a powerful corporation, realizing that they're not just exploiting their workers, but draining their life force, turning them into mindless shells. There's a lot of those stories out there. Like I said, with the parasite stories, with the hidden alien that came down to Earth is controlling people, or the parasite that grew from something that's controlling people, the ghost that was in the house that's now controlling someone. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about that scene in The Grudge where she's in the shower and the hands come out. Ooh, that's spooky. But yeah, I don't want to do like I said, I wanted this to be a singular story told through one person's perspective. I didn't want to be some conspiracy with the corporations running this and they're really vampires in the background. There is one vampire within. I wanted to write a new mythology and lore about vampires, that vampires aren't these things that live in coffins and come out at night and all this stuff. So hopefully I did that. Hopefully it's not been done. Like I said, my fear before, I spend so much mental energy and creative juices on this, and it's like, oh, this was the episode of The Twilight Zone, or this was the episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, or Goosebumps or something, and I never knew about it. But yeah, that's my Vampyr Echo story. Vampyr Echoes, is that what it said? Yes, story. Hope you liked it. Hope you didn't hate it. Hope you don't hate me. Hope you're doing something good. Hope you're cooking something good, or eating something good, or doing something good, or seeing something good. Enjoying life. But I'm enjoying doing this. That's why I still do it. But thanks for listening. I won't do any voiceover impersonations again, I promise. Maybe I will later, but I don't know. But thanks for listening. I'm still Kirk. This certainly still is Dumb Test Late. We're in spooky season. We're coming down to the end of it, but we're still in it. Thanks for listening, and you will catch me on the next one. Bye-bye.